Sweet, I'm so tired of you. Every dog must have his day. Sweet, I'm so tired of you. Sweet, I'm so tired of you treat me this way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Reach Out podcast. This is your host, Juan Pablo Orquez, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time once again to work in your professional development journey by tuning into this podcast. If you like this episode, please repost it and share it with anyone you think might find this useful. And don't forget to follow us on social media on Instagram at Reach Out Podcast, on TikTok at the Reach Out Podcast, as well as connecting with me on LinkedIn in case you have any questions, suggestions, if you want me to bring someone in particular to this program, or if you just want to connect with me, that's also super valid. So today I have a very, very special guest. She's here to talk to us about her trajectory and some of the valuable lessons that she's learned. Jessica Hinojosa, welcome to the Reach Out podcast, and how are you doing today?
Thanks, Juan Pablo. I'm great. Have a raspy voice, so I'm hopefully going to still be able to be loud enough and engaging enough, but doing great. Yeah, super excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being here, Jessica. And can you please share a bit of your background, where you grew up, and what you're focusing on in your work right now?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, so not too far from here. I left Texas for college, went to Stanford in California, wanted to move out west for a little while, and did both my undergrad and master's there. And I'm an earth scientist by background, so I studied earth systems, which is kind of like looking at both earth science, but how humans interact with the earth. And then after that, I moved to New Zealand, and I did a PhD in geology, so kind of got more hardcore sciencey. And then wanted to stay in academia. I thought I was going to be a professor, so I came back to the U.S., did a postdoc at Caltech in L.A., and then was trying to manage a long-distance relationship, so followed my boyfriend here to Houston, took a job at Shell. Never planned on working in oil and gas, but ended up really loving it. So my job at Shell initially was as a geochemist working on the oil and gas side, but Shell really was making some big strides in kind of the energy transition space. So I moved into their nature-based solutions group. And that's basically looking at carbon management through nature, basically. So can we plant, like the simplest example is planting trees to absorb carbon dioxide. So corporations do these sorts of projects to help manage their emissions. So I did that at Shell for 5 years, was really enjoying it, but wanted to have some different corporate experiences. So I took a job at Microsoft doing a similar thing. So I'm now a carbon removal program manager at Microsoft. And I like to say that in between Shell and Microsoft, I did an adult internship, and I worked as a consultant for a couple of months at a startup called Isometric. And I helped them develop a new protocol or like method for carbon accounting in the activity of reforestation. So how do you actually quantify how much carbon is being stored in these different ecosystems? So yeah, do a lot of technical work, but also kind of program management, some commercial deal making within that. And that's kind of been like my continuing theme throughout my career. And so only a month in at Microsoft, but really, really loving it and loving the team and the job and the mission.
Definitely. And while I was doing my research, I was very amazed by like your trajectory. As you mentioned, there was definitely some moments where like you didn't expect going this way or taking like certain opportunity, but I feel like overall, while I was looking at it, it was just like, wow, I can see clearly how this previous experience complements this new experience, and especially your new role at Microsoft, which for the ones that you don't know, like as Jessica mentioned, like she's pretty new to it. So again, congratulations on that
Yeah,
role.
thank you.
And Jessica, before we start, I want to talk about a very fun fact about you. And for those of you if you don't know, well, Jessica started working very, very early on. You played Maria for a couple of seasons of Barney, the kids' TV show during the 90s. I absolutely loved Barney when I was a kid. How did that came along, Jessica?
Yeah, it was such a fun experience, and I did that like starting at age 6 or 7. Obviously, when I didn't make my own decisions at age 6 or 7, so that was my parents. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and all of us kind of did acting on the side. So some of my siblings were in like TV commercials and like small things like that. And Barney was actually filmed in Dallas, so just luck of the draw. I was auditioning for things here and there, and landed that gig, which was awesome. So did that for a couple of years. Both as part of the like regular season, like being on the TV seasons, and then also like one of the Barney movies, which was just like straight to video, wasn't like in movie theaters or anything. But it was awesome. It was a great experience, and it taught me a lot about work ethic, because it was like at a very young age I had to balance like work and school, and I loved school, and so it was like. It was a lot about developing time management skills when you're 7. So obviously lots of help with many adults supporting me, but I do credit that experience for like a lot of my time management skills, oddly enough.
Yeah. No, I love that. I remember when I was like reading about it, and I was like, I need to make sure it's her, because it seems like two very far opposites of, child acting or acting in general, and then this very like climate change science approach to technology. And I gotta tell you, like I told one of my friends earlier today, Daniela, I told like I'm gonna interview you, and she was in Barney. She was like, oh my God, please ask her if she knew Selena Gomez.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say, is that after me, so I do like to joke that I was like the Latina on the show, and then after me was Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato. So I'm like,
Nice.
I missed my shot to be famous, but I didn't meet them, but they were after me actually.
They were there because of you.
Yeah, I paved the way for them. That's what I like to say. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Definitely the first actress that we had here in the Reach Out
That's
podcast.
awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
Jessica and I met at this student development event that Microsoft hosted here at the Ion. Those of you who don't know the Ion, you should definitely check it out. Definitely a very well thought out event where we got to practice our interview skills, our elevator pitch, and all of that cool stuff. And Jessica was one of the volunteers, professional volunteers that were with us throughout the day. Jessica, what motivated you to volunteer and help out the students that day?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start with kind of the macro view. I joined Microsoft September 23rd, so it's been a little over a month. But October for Microsoft is their Give Month, and one of the coolest things that I noticed about Microsoft is that there's like a very, very strong culture of giving and volunteering. And so starting from like even before October 1st, so like my first week on the job, it was like we want to like be community focused, volunteering focused. You can donate and your dollars will be matched. And so in my head, I was like, okay, this is actually a great way for me to both give back to my community, get to know other Microsoft people, and, contribute to this kind of like spirit of giving. And so I found this event. So it's through one of the employee groups at Microsoft called HOLA, which is, I can't remember the exact acronym, but it's the Latinx like affinity group. And so they set up this career development event. And when I found it, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to do that.
Right.
Love to support people that are like entering into their professional careers. I benefited so much from, good mentorship and good, guidance and coaching early on in my career. So it's like, you always got to give back if you experience something like that. So found the event, was super excited to volunteer and got to meet some fun, awesome students and also other Microsoft colleagues who I wouldn't have otherwise crossed paths with. So, those things are so great for broadening your network in general.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's funny that you mentioned. I did not know that you actually got to like network internally within new Microsoft employees.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a bit self-serving for me too. Yeah.
I love that. And, like today, guys, we want to like focus this conversation on how to leverage leadership for your career growth. And I believe, Jessica, you're a prime example of this. So I want to ask you, because you've consistently helped leadership roles throughout your career, from your work in Shell's nature-based solutions team to now managing Microsoft's carbon removal program. What are some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned along the way, both in leading projects and guiding teams?
Yeah, that's like a great question. I think that there's like two distinct things there. One is like leading programs, which is like its own set of challenges, and then building or leading teams and the complexities of people management. So when I was at Shell, my last role was as a team lead, so I was managing a team of 4 people. Currently at Microsoft, I'm not managing people, but I'm helping to manage the program. So it's very different in terms of your day-to-day. Like, are you helping, when you're managing people, it's delivering through others and really working to unlock people's highest potential, which is a like very valuable skill set to develop and to have. And then when you're managing programs, it's like you're the one that's doing the action. And I love both, honestly. Like I really, really like, I like being a people cultivator and like helping people find their best versions of themselves. But I also really, really love delivering impact. And so I'd say the key thing that I always say, like with people, is to basically help people grow in the way that they want to be helped. So this was like a really big learning curve for me as I became a team lead was, okay, I'm type A, I'm an extrovert, like these are all these kind of characteristics about me, and I could say the type of leader that I would want to have is exactly like for this personality profile. But as I was building my team, those people are not carbon copies of me, and they shouldn't be, you know? So it's really being reactive and adaptive, saying like, this person wants a leader that's very hands-on, that meets with them more than once a week, goes over like their to-do list for the week, gives feedback. This other person is like, you know, super high-performing and just wants to check in every once in a while and say, hey, here's what I did, and like, I don't necessarily need your approval, I'm just telling you, you know? And so you have to really adapt to the people. And then on the program side, it's like a very different approach, which is how do I like work on a bunch of different things at once to keep my brain kind of stimulated, but have them all work towards some really big picture goal. So like always having a North Star for your program. Like what are you trying to achieve in the long run? So yeah, those are kind of like the 2 different mindsets that I've leveraged as you know, a leader of both programs and people.
Got it. I want to highlight those like combination of still managing to always keep the north of the project or the team itself, but at the same time kind of being this chameleon that adapts to all the different types of like working styles and learning styles of all the members of your group. And I've never heard anyone be so adamant about it. I wanna ask you, for college students that are about to join the workforce, what are some good ways to start analyzing, hey, what is my working style? What is the path that is going to work for me whenever I have to work with a manager, work with team members in a real job?
Yeah, I think one of the like things that that helps the most is like doing a lot of self-reflection. And like if you get hired at a big company, like, you know, I started my career at Shell, and I like really benefited from corporate training, you know, and so we had training around social skills and, you know, EQ and being, you know, like even training around diversity and inclusion, you know, so like that I really, really loved because it helps kind of like challenge your status quo of thinking.
Right.
But also, like, if you start at a smaller company, you may not have those resources. Not to say that that's, like, bad. It's just, you know, the company can't offer it necessarily. But I think that it's important to do that work, whether your company offers it or not. So, you know, like, I'm trying to think of examples, but, like, I love taking working style, like, personality tests. And there's certain ones that are, like, more science-backed than others. There's one, and now I'm blanking on what it's called. I need to remember it. But it basically puts you into like one of 4 quadrants based on like your working style, and then it tells you, it's called the DISC test, DISC. And it tells you like, this is kind of like your dominant working style. This is your secondary working style. And then based on that, like if you're working with somebody, like if I'm a D and you're an I, here's how I should share information with you, and here's how you might receive things from me, and then like vice versa. So I think it's just like really important to spend time getting to know like what is my style? Like, how do I deliver? How do I receive feedback? How do I give feedback? Like, how do I work as an individual? How do I work as a member of a team? And when you like know yourself really well, then it just makes you better equipped to work with others, and also to say to your manager, like, hey, I don't do very well if I don't have deadlines. So even though this project is open-ended, can we set artificial deadlines so that I'll deliver better? So you have to kind of know those things about yourself to then talk to your peers and talk to your managers about like how to deliver best.
I feel like that's such an important topic that often goes unnoticed until it is needed. I keep bringing her up, but my friend Daniela, we were talking about this because she works for this roofing company, and she told me how she's like very like a leadership type, and she gets like a lot of creative freedom within that role, and she told her boss that like we should do like some analysis of and making everyone take this kind of like personality tests. And she told me like the result of that was that the leads and the sales on a weekly basis like grew dramatically.
Cool.
So I think that after she told me that, I was like, wow, like I kind of want to do it too. And because it makes total sense. Like you never want only one type of personality people in the same project.
Yeah.
You have to have like versatile like dynamic within that is gonna make much more sense and make it much more effective.
Yeah,
right.
definitely. And I think one of the interesting things is like I've had many bosses in my career, and the boss with whom I had like the biggest personality differences, like that was probably when I grew the most as an individual. So even though I didn't like love our working relationship, I grew a lot because it was like, wow, he does not view the world the way that I do. He doesn't like view like just interpersonal dynamics or like the way that we approach policies and procedures, like, but it just like was such a good chance to like check myself and see like, okay, how can we work together? And then there's other managers I've had where it's like, whoa, we're like, I'm looking in the mirror, like you're exactly like me. And it's so fun and it's great to work with a manager like that. But it's like, did I grow or did I actually just like reinforce, my thinking? So it's really good to have diversity of thought in the room, both with different, like leaders and also like among your team and with your peer group.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like that's also such a valuable thing that you gain out of this, like for the audience, like internships and co-ops.
Yeah.
Especially like if you do like multiple ones throughout your college career in different industries, different companies, if that's possible. I've had a very pleasant and very like growth experience because I was able to experience like working with certain type of manager and there's certain type of manager and both in different industries, and it kind of tested my ability and kind of like you got to think on the feet and kind of like become adaptable. That's the whole point of it. So yeah,
definitely. And I think like to that point, it's also great to have multiple internships and like short-term things, because what like my very first internship, which was in high school, was like it was just working for my dad. So but he worked in advertising, and I had always thought that I wanted to do that too because I was like a creative type. And then I did it, and I was like, I don't really like that. And I was like, this was actually super valuable because I got to cross something off my list, and then I became a scientist. And so it's like, I think those experiences are great because it's just as valuable to learn what you don't like or what like doesn't, inspire you as much as it is to like find the thing that you're like, this is my passion.
Oh, yeah. 100%. It's often said that it's very important to know what you don't like.
Yeah. Totally.
Jessica, I want to ask you, you went on a Smoko podcast last year with Alexis Armstrong.
Yes.
Definitely check that out. I got to be honest, I wish I knew more about what you guys were talking about. Definitely seemed really interesting and a topic that, again, is very important, and especially for the youth, climate change and the science behind it and carbon removal technologies is something that you definitely need to tap in. But you went to this Mocha podcast with Alexis, and I want to ask you about one very important piece of advice you gave there, which is to always say yes to opportunities, even when they seem someone out of your scope.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that, and how has that advice helped you develop within your career?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it actually goes all the way back to that like example I just gave about interning with my dad. You know, it was like that was the beginning of kind of this like when opportunities like fall in front of me, I'm gonna just say yes to them because it just will continually broaden my scope. And so I did that a lot during my undergrad, where it was like, chances to intern. I also interned as an undergrad at a domestic violence agency in Dallas, which was like very, very powerful. And I was already going down the science path with my studies, but this was like great to be like, there's so many issues that matter so much, and like when you get very passionate about a single issue, like I have, like climate change is my mission, but then it's really important to be like, I'm also going to spend a summer like working with women who are like fleeing domestic violence. And so it just kind of like really opens your aperture, broadens your horizons. And then I continued to do that, as my career went on, and I just had so many cool opportunities because of that. It's like I got to sail on a tall ship in the Pacific Ocean, and I got to move to New Zealand, and like got to go to China and got to go to Japan. You get to just kind of like ride this wave of opportunity. And I also recognize that that's like a privileged thing to say. I was in a position where I had a lot of opportunities. So I think, if you have them, recognize the privilege and say yes to them. And also then going back to like what we were talking about at the beginning, it's really important to then provide them for others if you have the opportunity to do so. So it's like, always taking the opportunity and then paying it forward, to kind of like make sure everybody else can get that as well.
Absolutely. I feel like that's such a important, very heavy advice for everyone out there. While I was watching your interview with Alexis, you mentioned how we got to focus on the big issues. Like it's okay to like work on the smaller stuff, but what seems big to you is often what needs your attention. And I feel like that's always connected to what you mentioned, always being open to these opportunities, because like you never know what's going to come out of it. And worst case scenario, you get a really cool story out of it.
Yeah, so, exactly. And I think it's always worth trying it out.
Yeah, that reminds me. I'm currently working on with my boss Min. I'm doing his podcast, and he's one of those people that I really look up to, because he is never like holding back on calling me out of my bluff. And like I gotta tell you, like I'm trying to buy like this piece of equipment, like this camera for this podcast, and every time I go to record with him, he's like, well, did you buy your camera? And I was like, no. And I was like, why? Like, you're not broke. And I was like, I know I'm not broke. But like, and he was like, he's kind of right. Like, I just need to like really just throw myself out there and say yes to the opportunity, say yes to the uncertainty.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the best part of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Jessica, for most of the Reach Out podcast audience is made up of college students, and as a current student myself, I can say that one of my favorite parts of college has been my involvement in student organizations, student programs, and having leadership roles within them. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the really, really cool close friendships that I gotten out of it. It's given me so much in terms of skills and personal growth. From your perspective, how does having leadership experience in college set a student apart from those who don't have it once they graduate and enter the workforce?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think college is such an awesome place to develop those skills in, I don't want to say it's low stakes, because I think that, you can be a very important leadership role in college, and there's such high impact things that can happen. But in many cases, you can also kind of like explore leadership without it being like, too high stakes. So like, as an example, not to humble brag, but like I was the president of my sorority. That was awesome because I could be like, I remember I gave a speech on my first day, which is like, it kind of makes me cringe in retrospect. But I was like, my values are transparency and honesty. And it's like, Well, I'm a sorority president. Like, what does that mean? But like, still to this day, those are my values, and I like remember that I said that then, and like practiced my like leadership kickoff speech, and so it's just like I got to try things on and say like, yeah, that actually fits, and like that is who I want to be, and like I'm gonna hold on to that. And then there were other things like I'm trying to think of other examples, but there were other things I did where it was like, yeah, no, I like that's not as like. It doesn't feel as authentic, or like that's not something that I value as much as the other things. So it just gives you an opportunity to kind of like step into that space and not be afraid of it. And I think that that's really important. I think that like pretty much everybody has the capacity to be a leader, but a lot of people are just really intimidated by it. And so it's like giving yourself opportunities, low pressure, low stakes ways to be like, I'm starting a club and it's going to be 5 people and it's a chess club, but I'm going to be the leader, and I'm going to like set up a budget, or I'm going to plan weekly meetings, and like I'm going to, set up a tournament schedule. It's like those are steps to take to like start to have the confidence to, develop leadership skills. And so it's super important, I think, as early as you can to try that hat on.
Oh yeah, you heard it here first. You got to do it as early as you can. It's like I've seen difference like night and day with people that are like. Just in college, it's very like low stakes, but just out of that, like you get the connections, you get internships, you know more about yourself, and quickly, in the best case scenario, you realize maybe I'm a people person, maybe I enjoy being a leader, but you wouldn't have known that if you hadn't thrown yourself out to leadership, like you say, Jessica. So for all of you guys out there, please do that. A good example is MISO. MISO is the Management Information Systems org at Bauer, and I was talking with some of the officers, and I was just like, it's so crazy how some of the students that pay and like sign up, they just don't go to the events, and they just don't like run for officer positions, and I'm like, that's the best part of it, like that's like the opportunity there.
Yeah.
But Jessica, this kind of like a me question, like I want to like have it like selfishly. Your passion, for addressing the climate crisis and driving the energy transition has obviously guided every step of your career. Many students and young professionals often settle for a job that just simply pays well, rather than pursuing what truly excites them. What advice would you give me to just fully get out of the comfort zone and kind of like the safe, secure pathway and actively just pursue this not only the podcast, but I just want to make sure that I can reach as many students and help them out, not only this set of students, but the upcoming class and then the ones who graduate, and then people that are already in the workforce. I want to make sure that I can reach as many ears as possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the advice I have to give is like, it's hard. It's a privilege to be able to like follow your passion without thinking about like, well, obviously I have to make money and put food on the table and all that. So, like I started out at Shell, got a like competitive paying job, and I wasn't working on climate change. And then basically like it was such a strong like personal passion that like I actually is like similar to the theme, started joining a group. There was like a sustainability focused group at Shell, got super involved in it, got on the board. By being on the board of that employee group at Shell, that's how I got connected to the like team that I then joined. And so I think like there's 2 ways you can do it. One is like just say following my passion is the most important thing, and like the money will come, or like that's secondary. That's like one approach. The other approach is saying like, I need to get a job. I need it to like pay well, or I need it to meet like certain criteria to feel comfortable. And then wherever I land, I can build out my professional identity and be who I want to be. And I think that latter one is a little bit more of the path that I followed. And it kind of like worked out really well, and not that it will work out well for everybody, but I do feel really lucky that happened for me, where it was like, I was able to like, I remember when I joined Shell and was like, again, working on the oil and gas side, one of my teammates who had been there for like 15 or 20 years was kind of jaded. And she was like, yeah, everybody joins Shell and thinks they're going to like go be on the green side of Shell, and then nobody actually does it. Right. And I was like, no, I'm not going to listen to that. Like, I'm going to do it. And, you know, it was like I manifested it. And, like, it was just like getting involved and really being like, I get the most satisfaction when I'm working on this, you know, working on climate change mitigation. So, yeah, I mean, I think for you, you know, it's like you can do both. You know, if you want this to be your career, you can also, like, get a job on the side, moonlight as this, and then, like, when this is big enough, you can, you know, make this your whole career. Or you could say, no, I'm going to, like, go all in right now. And that's a little bit more high risk, but also, like, maybe potentially be really high reward. So I think part of it depends on a person's individual risk tolerance, you know, and so it's like, do you want to dive in right away, or do you want to kind of, like, develop this as a, like, side hustle, and then when it gets big enough, be like, this is my main thing.
Right. Yeah. I think, you know, the way that you go about your passion is truly inspiring, because it's not easy to find that balance between something that's conventional and works really well, that's also connected with the mission that you love. And I'm sure that, like, as you mentioned, it only comes through hard work and a whole trajectory. And that's sort of what I want to achieve. And I think that was really great advice, Jessica. And not only myself, but also all of you guys should definitely hear it. And I want to start closing this interview, Jessica. You know, while I was doing my research, I saw you mentioned that you went and did your PhD in geology and earth science in the University of Otago, I'm saying it right, in New Zealand, which I think is amazing. Not only it is a very admirable accomplishment, of course, but also you made the decision to get out of your comfort zone by moving across the world and to continue to pursue your passion. So I'm wondering, how did that experience help you gain clarity of what you're capable of?
Yeah, I think, again, it's like not everybody has the opportunity to do this, but, like, I'm a big fan of living abroad. My my parents, like, moved around Latin America before I was born, and then they landed in Dallas, and then I was born, and then they stayed there. And I was like, oh, God, I missed out on all the opportunities. My older siblings, like, had all of that. But it was, like, it's very much part of my family identity to, like, have, like, a very strong multicultural perspective. And not just, like, your heritage, but also just, like, having lived somewhere for a little while, you, like, that place becomes kind of part of your identity. So I knew I wanted to do that. And, yeah, so I actually went to New Zealand through the Fulbright program, which is an amazing, like, highly recommend it, great program to look into after undergrad, to basically get the U.S. government to help you go abroad, and found a group that was working on the research topic that I wanted to in New Zealand, and got super lucky that I, you know, managed to secure the grant and go there. And I think, yeah, the way that it, like, opened up my world perspective was just, like, it basically made me see, like, I mean, I remember the first couple months I was there, I had a bunch of, New Zealanders are called Kiwis. So I had a bunch of Kiwi friends. I was living with Kiwis, and they were all like, you are so American. And, like, they'd be like, you know, they'd make fun of my accent. And for me, I'm like, you all's accent is insane. But they would make fun of my accent. And then they'd be like, here's all the ways that you're so American. And it was, like, such a good, like, ego check, being like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, I am very, like, strongly one way. And, like, when you put that in the context of the whole world, like, you know, Americans have the tendency to put ourselves in the center of everything, but it's very important to go elsewhere and be like, there's a whole world beyond us, you know? So I think it was like, that experience was great for me to just, like, open myself to the whole world, to, like, understand that systems that exist outside of the U.S. are equally as amazing, and if not better, including things like, you know, the healthcare system there. I was like, oh, this is so nice. Like, I just go into the doctor and I can get healthcare and I don't have to pay anything. So yeah, it was just very, very eye-opening to see, like, how the rest of the world works. And for me, it was, like, a great way to develop independence, to be like, I'm really far away from my family, from my support system, and I have to build all of that from scratch here. And it gave me a lot of self-confidence. Like, you know, can't remember how old I was, but, like, early 20s when I did that. And yeah, I was like, all right, I have to figure out how to, like, open a bank account in a, like, completely different banking system, you know? Like, I have to go get a cell phone, you know? So it's just, like, it was a great way to like humble myself and be like, and then after I did that and I spent 3.5 years there, it was like, yeah, I'm a very capable person. I built a whole life in another country, so like it was, I learned so much and yeah, developed a lot of like self-confidence of my skills of like moving into new spaces, both like geographically and conceptually, and like having the confidence to do it.
I love that. I feel like it's, as you said, it's a must. Everyone should definitely do it. And especially if you're here in America, you should go out and
Yeah.
go and meet people and meet other like societies and whatnot. It's definitely something that I'm really excited to do, like once I'm graduating out of college. And you should definitely do it too. And Jessica, final question. This is my favorite question of the interview. I want to ask you, what makes you happy?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, so I have 2 young kids, and I mean, it's like I couldn't say anything but them. So like, but my husband and 2 sons like make me super happy. I have a 3-year-old son and a 10-month-old son, and the 10-month-old like Jojo, he's just started like dancing to music. So like in the evenings we play like the Talking Heads, and both of my sons love like rocking out, and it's just that makes me really, really happy. And then also being in nature, just because it's like linked to my career. It's very like true to who I am. So I love being in a beautiful natural setting. That's like where my heart feels really full.
I absolutely love that. And I'll say, like, for me right now, what makes me happy, I feel like similar, like music. I'm starting to pick up more of piano,
Oh, nice.
and I feel like it's a really good like creative just gateway, and is something that my dad always made me employ, and I'm always gonna be forever grateful because he did that when I was really young. And yeah, but with that said, Jessica, again, thank you so much for being in the Reach Out podcast and sharing your knowledge, sharing your lessons for all of us out there. Where can the students reach you or find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think maybe you could put my LinkedIn information on the podcast. But yeah, happy to connect on LinkedIn. And I don't have a website or anything cool like that. So that's probably the best way.
Absolutely, absolutely. You'll find it there. And again, it's not about the things that you can get from people, but it's about building genuine connections. So never forget to reach out, and see you on the next one, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Sweet, I'm so tired of you.